is up, Nerf herders? We are here. We're kind of okay. There we are.
There we go.
We
There
are
we go.
here.
We're here.
We are back for another episode of the N.A.P. Joshua, how are we doing today, sir?
Doing good, bud. Doing good. Had a pretty busy Monday. I don't know about you, but a pretty busy Monday, and
I'm
my
swamped.
weekend just flew by. But yeah, doing good for a Monday.
I don't know. The days just keep feeling like they're getting longer and longer. The longer all like lockdown stuff keeps going on, and so I just don't. It's
Man, I
never
wish
gonna
I
quit.
wish that was the case. From a writer's point of view, I wish I had like ample amounts of time, but like my days get shorter during the week because of work, and then because I work so much during the week, my weekends get shorter, and I just feel like I have this all of this pent up like stuff to write in my head and can't find the time to do it. I feel so ashamed. Feel so ashamed. I should have knocked out like 10 books by now, but during lockdown, but I've knocked out 0.
Yeah, I'll fully admit that I'm very behind on all my scripts and on some photo ideas. I mean, I just finished a wedding edit for photos, and that was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even the thought of opening up Lightroom or Photoshop again right now just is I'm dreading it. Like, I can't even imagine doing that right now.
I
But
did shave the beard. I shaved the beard because I needed like it
kind
was
of.
like I shaved off the sides so that my mask like covers me a little bit better. But yeah. Um
I'm
there-
every time I put on my mask, like I'm getting burly right now, but every time I put on
mhm.
my mask, like it's like there's just this level of swampy condensation that builds up underneath it, and it's getting shitty. So
Yeah,
if everybody
it
could wear a
happens.
mask so I can stop having swamp beard, that'd
Mhm.
be that'd be wonderful. um
So I was gonna ask you, have you ever heard of the comedian Trey Kennedy on YouTube?
no.
He's hilarious. He was actually supposed to come through LinkedIn on tour, and I think it got canceled because of COVID. But he's funny. He's been popping up. He's been like getting bigger and bigger over the last couple of years. But he did a phases of 2020 video this week, and it was spot on with like I mean every like down to the detail. But also, what I cracked up about was that towards the end, he was like, "Well, what new things have you been doing lately?" And he says, "Oh, I learned how to play pickleball." And Maddie and I have actually learned how to play pickleball over the last month because her parents play it down in Lincoln. And I don't know if you know what pickleball is,
I have
but
no idea.
it's
Um,
awesome. It's like tennis and wiffle ball combined. And basically it's like you're on like half a tennis court and you're in squares and you've got these paddles that are slightly bigger than a ping pong paddle but slightly smaller than a racquetball a rack or whatever, and it's a paddle and you're hitting wiffle balls over the net, and there's rules and everything, and it's actually like really competitive down in Lincoln, and they've been telling us about this for months, and we finally went down and saw her parents for the first time in months a couple weeks ago, and they're like, let us show you how to play this, and then the next weekend Maddie and I went out and got paddles, and we've been playing on a local court here, and it's like the new fun thing to do. So pickleball, people, look it up.
Pickleball.
Hmm.
I have
I don't know
been
why it's called that, but yeah.
I have been working on playing League of Legends again, which
Nice.
which is very toxic compared to the rest of the. Well, actually, it's pretty much on par with how toxic the rest of the world is. Somebody had to point that out to me. I was like, well, at least League isn't as bad as Facebook these days. It's like, oh, they're about the same.
I'm
That's fair.
surprised you're playing that while everybody else in the world is playing that samurai game that's supposed to be just like amazing.
Yeah. I already had League of Legends, and it's free, and I'm saving all my money because Canon is actually coming out with a new camera, and it's like the updated version of the one that I have right now, and it's gonna be
Oh,
around like $4,000 to get a hold of everything I need for it.
believe it.
So yeah, I'm saving up a little bit, but
Okay.
No, I'm working on putting together all the elements for the Twitch channel for Nerf Herders Assemble. So if we decide to do gaming content or anything like that, we can house it over there.
Cool.
And but yeah, so I've been going through that, and I remember how infuriating League of Legends was back in the days, but it hasn't been quite as bad. I'm looking at it with a whole new perspective. But in the process, I've been like trying to find like good music to be playing in the background, or just because like it's not a game I want to be distracted from, trying to watch a
Uh-huh.
show or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know that it's not going to be my taste, but you told me that you were like shocked at how good the new Taylor Swift music was, and so that was one of our talking points today. And
Yeah.
it's actually
Well,
been blowing up on all the social media too. Is that it's been like a very different sound for her apparently.
it is, and talking about being lazy over COVID, she started writing this in April, and so she put this out this
That's
past
very fast.
yeah, she this came out this past Friday, and there wasn't like a tour, there wasn't a lot of there wasn't like a huge like campaign, like it just kind of came out of nowhere. And it's this our image is breaking it up a little bit, but it's called Folklore. And yeah, man, it's not her normal pop stuff. And granted, I'm not like a Taylor Swift hater. There's some songs that she's written over the years that I thought were at the time like had some good pop to it or whatever, and were well done, or she's very when she tries, she can be incredibly lyrical, and I've always appreciated that. But this one is just like this is more along the lines of the music that I listen to, as far as it's more sounds more like an indie like folk or indie alternative sound to it, and it's got incredible lyrics. And I just like you said, I saw it like blowing up on Facebook and on Twitter and everything on Friday, and so I started listening to a little bit of it on Friday night, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is good!" Not to mention, she has a song that features Bon Iver, which I love his music. And I thought, well, at least I'm gonna love that song, and I did love it. But then there's like at least 6 or 7 other songs of like the 13, 14 track album that I just really, really loved. So I'm very impressed and very surprised.
So I've I have very very little familiarity with Taylor Swift. Like her particular genre is not one that I dive into very often at all. I'm a big metalhead. I'm a big instrumental. I actually listen to a lot of orchestral music.
Hmm.
So movie soundtracks end up sneaking their way onto my Spotify every now and then too. But yeah, like general pop music, I just can't. I really can't jump into. But yeah, I I might not like the music at all, but just the logistics of putting together an album in, see, April, May, June, July,
Yeah.
4 months putting
Hmm.
together. So I mean, for those who are not privy to the process of actually writing an album, recording it, and all of the post production that goes into that afterwards. Well, first of all, Taylor Swift has definitely got the money to work with very, very prominent people in order to make something like that happen. So 4 months, uh, 4 months is still impressive.
Hmm.
But at her scale, considering the people that she works with, I mean, I guess if they didn't have like a long list of people coming into their studio to work with stuff with COVID going on, who knows how much free time they might have had.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I imagine her schedule opened up quite a bit, not having to do much touring.
Sure.
But
Well, and that was the thing. They say that normally before this, because her last album released last year, so 11 months ago. So this is the fastest turnaround of a Taylor Swift album. And they said before this point, the fastest turnaround was a year and 9 months. And so the fact that she wrote this It wasn't like she's had these songs for a while, and then, she finally got ready to go record them while everybody was in lockdown. She started writing this in April, and then from April till now recorded it, or wrote it. And the other reason that I loved, she's there's other times where she's shown great lyrical talent, but not all the time. A lot of pop stuff nowadays, I mean, everybody falls into this. A lot of pop stuff is repetition and, just not saying a lot of words, just saying some words a lot, and that's not really the case with this song or with this album. It's full of imagery, it's full of storytelling, and it really stuck out to me that she approached Aaron Dessner, who is the guitarist for The National. And I love The National. They write some amazing music. 2 of their songs were featured on the Warrior soundtrack, which are they're perfect for that movie, and they're very powerful and they're very well written. And she worked with him on this album. And I was reading more and more up on it, and he said, Dessner said that he and Swift were pretty much in touch daily for about 3 months by text and phone calls while they were working on this. And I just thought that was pretty cool. I mean, that's definitely, a pop person, might go to somebody like that for a song, like to have the one song that's like the outlier of their new album. But that's not the case here. Like the entire album is incredibly different than anything else she's put out in the past. And so it was kind of neat to see that change.
Well, with that in mind, I'll have to actually give it a shot. Like I'm looking up info on it right now and just looking up Aaron Dessner. I hadn't heard of him before either.
Mm-hmm. Well, The National, you've probably heard of The National. Even if you haven't heard of The National, you probably would recognize their music. They're pretty popular.
I couldn't pick it out of, I couldn't like name you any of their songs, but I'm sure I've heard their stuff before because I've heard of them before.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is an interesting pointer to so what I would hope that the lesson from this would be 3 to 4 months is not a long time to write and record an album, but as far as like post-production, everything comes after that. There's quite a bit involved, at least in my genre. Obviously she's probably not working with quite as many elements as some of the music that I listen to, especially not orchestral pieces. There's a lot that goes into putting that kind of stuff together. But this pandemic should not have slowed down. Like, I'm a musician myself. This pandemic should not have slowed down the writing process for musicians. And one of the key things that I talk about I just heard a noise. Was that StreamYard?
Yeah. I don't know. But
it's weird. One of the key things that I try and get across to a lot of like musicians, especially here in the local level, is that the internet is the main stage for musicians nowadays. And you can cater to that from your living room. And so I would hope that this would kind of because Taylor Swift has inspired hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of musicians to go ahead and pursue this kind of thing. And I would hope that by her writing an album during a quarantine, being stuck at home, I assume that she's working almost entirely remotely for the most part, at least I would hope, unless she's quarantining with the guy pretty commonly, who knows. But yeah, it's like you do not need to you don't need to tour or anything like that. She doesn't need to tour. She's famous enough as it is. But this is putting together an album and recording all that stuff without going too crazy is possible. And so I know that it doesn't translate for her being this superhero megaoid star down to like a starting musician, but like it kind of does at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, to be, I was when I heard the first couple tracks, I was like, okay, so this is going to kind of be like an acoustic album because there wasn't much to the songs, like it would be like maybe a couple instruments, but not the whole album is like that. Some of the album is pretty well
Produced.
stylized songs and whatnot. It's not just like a piano and a guitar the entire album. So I was impressed by that. And I would wonder, I haven't read anything on this specifically, but I wonder if the short turnaround time also kind of allowed her to keep the songs the way she wanted them to be and not time for oversight or studio interference, or maybe you should do this instead. Like there is one song with an F bomb in it, and I'm not sure if her previous tracks or her previous albums have been parental advised. I don't really remember that being associated with her, but I could be wrong. But I just thought that they were so. There's a lot of the songs that I was just like, wow, this is like, I mean, this is the music that I listened to, and I just did not expect to hear it from her. And there was one more quote that I just liked. It was Desner from the National saying that when he shared some music with her, he thought it would take a while for the song ideas to come, and he had no expectations as far as what we could accomplish remotely. But he was presently surprised that a few hours after sharing the music, my phone lit up with a voice memo from Taylor of a fully written song, and the momentum never really stopped. So, I mean, I could have just imagined that, like I said, I have so much in my head. I've got stories upon stories. I started doing some notebooks so that I could write them all down. But I still have a 9 to 5 job, and my 9 to 5 job has become much more than 9 to 5. And when her nine to
Feel that.
five job is to write music, and she can't tour, and she can't go do book signings, and she can't go do fan events, I imagine that is all just focused into this. And so, 4 months to produce an album like this, I imagine if that's the only thing she had to do, then props to her for doing it. Cause I imagine most people should be able to do that at this point. If that's literally their job, I'm surprised we haven't had an explosion of albums over this summer. She seems to be one of the few people that have done it, or have released something that they didn't have, like, um, there's a couple bands that had stuff that was going to release later in the year that they've released over the summer, like Run the Jewels and stuff like that. But she actually wrote it during COVID and released it during COVID. And that's just pretty impressive to me, on top of the impressive music.
Well, I mean, it's nice that something new is coming out from something because fucking everything else is getting delayed right now.
Yeah.
We're getting constant announcements of new stuff that's coming, or
Mm-hmm.
like so one of the big criticisms that we've given in the past, I can't remember the exact media outlet that it was called. Oh man. But they've come out with those clickbait stories more often than anything else
Oh,
about
sure.
like the Marvel universe and upcoming movie news and
We
stuff
got
like
this
that.
covered, or
We got this
cosmic book
covered. There
news.
it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the clickbait stories have been going absolutely insane lately because every single little teeny tiny update that
Yeah.
people can get their hands on, they're like freaking out about, and rightly
True.
so because we haven't gotten too terrible much. Um, but thankfully, every now and then we do get some news that is verifiable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
one of which being something that I'm kind of torn on. I don't know how you're gonna feel about it, but it was some Witcher news that
Yeah.
popped up.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I was excited to talk to you about this because I know that we've both watched The Witcher, so it's finally
Yep.
something that we've both watched, and to my knowledge, we both enjoyed it. I know you had some issues with the storytelling of the first season, and I agreed, and we kind of discussed how that
It
was
was really
all
how
kind
they
of a
structured it.
yeah, it was structured weird, and it was kind of
Yeah.
like, and then they had the excuse of why it was structured that way, and that they were trying to give you a bunch of foundation before they really went into the next season, which in their minds was really the first story arc. And that's kind of an excuse, and it doesn't really, okay, but this is what you gave us first, and you should have structured it a little more better. But they're certainly not the first people to do some crazy non-linear storytelling. But the reason why I have 3 images up here is because Netflix is just going full on committed to The Witcher. They've announced The Witcher season 2 is currently in production. They've announced an anime movie for The Witcher, from the folks, from the studio that did Korra. which I am really excited about.
That's exciting.
I loved Korra so much. And what
We're
is it
talking
called?
Legend of Korra, right?
The
We're
Legend
not
of Korra, yeah, the
okay.
Avatar sequel. So the movie is supposed to come out this year. I don't know if it still will, but it's called The Witcher: Nightmare of the Wolf, and that will come out on Netflix. And then this weekend they announced, and I believe this was part of the Comic Con at Home thing, but they announced that that a prequel series is coming out for The Witcher called Blood Origin.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
So, being that The Witcher is based on a novel series, they've got a lot of content that they can cover, and that was actually kind of my complaint about the first series, is that they
Mm-hmm.
were trying to cram so much in there into the first series.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually kind of like the same. Like just recently, we were talking about the Old Guard. They kind of fell into the same thing too. There's a lot of ground to cover, and they rushed through a lot of exposition to try and like establish that, and then jump into a full series. I feel like The Witcher did kind of the same thing. They knew they were going to get more than one series. They didn't want to spend. They didn't want to have a huge amount of episodes, because that was a complaint that a lot of people had about the Marvel series, is that they were just like the 12 episodes that they had to tell the story, that was just too much. So they're cramming all this explanation in here. And now we see that their plan all along was to have like a pretty rich universe worth of content out of it, which fair enough. I mean, if you want to do that, like if that's the plan all along, why rush it? Like, why rush it through the first thing and then go on from there? I'm
I'm not sure if it
100% on
was
board with the
all
anime
along.
series. Maybe not.
But you're right. They have since, at least since the success of the first season, have called it a potential massive new franchise. So
Yeah.
they've definitely dug in deep now, and yeah, it's definitely blowing up now.
So, and obviously, like the anime series, how much is that going to relate to the live action series? I don't know if it will at all. Maybe it'll be like
Mm-hmm.
completely like side stuff. They won't mention much of anything. Like Geralt's an old guy. Like he's been around
Right.
for a bit. So
And it's
a
just
lot.
going to be a movie. It won't be a series. So it'll be short.
Okay.
It'll be one story, and maybe that'll just be more filler story into the lore of Geralt. And I kind of like that instead of two series going on at the same time. I'd
Yeah.
rather just, if that's how they have to do it to give us more of his backstory instead of such a non-linear structure for the second season, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, there's a lot they would have to go over, and so if they're using these other mediums to like fill in the blanks,
Yeah, yeah.
and tell some of the stories that they should have told during the first series, or should have mentioned during the first series, and then explain in other pieces of content, sure, absolutely. But
Hmm.
yeah, I as far as like a prequel series, one that's set particularly 1200 years before Geralt's there, like I mean, I don't necessarily see the point of that, because it's supposedly going to be focused around the first Witcher, the very first, not like the first Witcher book or anything. I think the first actual character Witcher, that particular universe had seen, or at least
Well, and
that's what I've heard so far.
it's also to cover the so here's the quote from the showrunner, Declan DeBarra. He said, "As a lifelong fan of fantasy, I am beyond excited to tell the story of The Witcher Blood Origin. The question has been burning in my mind ever since I first read the Witcher books. What was the elven world really like before the cataclysmic arrival of the humans? I've always been fascinated by the rise and fall of civilizations, how science, discovery, and cultural flourish right before that fall, how vast swathes of knowledge are lost forever in such a short time, often compounded by colonization and rewriting of history, leaving only fragments of a civilization's true story behind. The Witcher Blood Origin will tell the tale of the elven civilization before its fall, and most importantly, reveal the forgotten history of the very first Witcher with a W. So yeah, it looks like that'll be a part of it. Um, I so this is what it kind of reminds me of. We just got done with Game of Thrones. Immediately after Game of Thrones finished, what did HBO announce? They announced some
Hey, we've got
prequel
prequels.
shows, hundreds of years before Game of Thrones, because you've already got Game of Thrones. We're not going to
Yep.
reboot it. We'll probably have a spinoff, but let's go back a few hundred years. Amazon, they announced that they're going to do their own fantasy show of the Lord of the Rings, but are they going to attempt to remake Lord of the Rings? Hell fucking no. They're not stupid. So they're going back hundreds of years, thousands of years in Lord of the Rings Middle Earth history to come to write stories of that past. Well, those shows might work because you had all of this core story, you had this universe that you built up, and now that that universe is solid in people's minds, you can tell other stories in that universe. The problem with this is we got one season of The Witcher, one very convoluted, that at the end they were like, thanks for sticking around. We promise the second season isn't going to be so convoluted.
Yeah.
But we're already talking about a prequel series hundreds of years in the past. And, it's like, okay, that's cool. And yes, I did want to know more about this elven race, especially after what I saw in the first movie or in the first series. But I'm really wanting to see more of The Witcher first before I get an expansion. And granted, this is only a 6-part miniseries, so they've said it's going to be short and sweet, and maybe some of the events will be vital to the next season or the ongoing story of Geralt. And I guess I would rather, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they have a strategy. I'm sure there's a reason they're
I
doing
would
this.
hope.
And I would think maybe this is better. Maybe they do this and it's a 6-part miniseries that's dedicated to this story instead of weaving this story into a season of The Witcher and then discounting that season of The Witcher, because you've seen shows where there's there's like multiple storylines that covers in that season. It's always jumping between them. And sometimes the storyline that you were really invested in, you keep on having to wait because they keep on jumping back to the other storylines. So maybe that's why they're doing this. Maybe they're like, we don't want to do that. We'd rather just make a 6-part miniseries that you can watch on the side, and then it will enrich your experience watching the main season. If that's the case, yay. I mean, props to you and props to Netflix for having the money to do it. If they're clearly they're wanting to expand, because we now have 3 Witcher titles, properties in production, and that's crazy.
I don't know. The only problem that I have with it is that if it was planned all along to have other pieces of media like that are not part of the main like series explaining stuff that the main series couldn't because they were rushing through it, it just feels like that supplemental content that we hate so much, where it's like,
Yeah.
we didn't get these answers here. I have to watch this completely different thing that they're now making after the fact to try and explain all the stuff they fucked up on in the first series. That
Well, it could.
then I have kind of a beef, but
So it
who
could
knows
be
if
like
it'll end
that,
up being like that.
because we've talked about how like Disney does that with Star Wars. Like when they
Notoriously.
when they especially with their sequel trilogy, when people are like, this doesn't make sense, or that storyline was kind of weak, then they're like, oh well, wait for this comic that we just announced, or wait for this book we totally didn't plan to write before, but it's coming out now and it's going to fill in that hole nice and tight. So I don't know if that's necessary. I mean, that could be it, or this could just be supplemental material. As far as I know, the books came out and there was the core storyline in the books, but then there was also a book of just short stories, like stories on his travels that aren't necessarily filler or corrections from the main storyline. They're just supplemental stories that just didn't need a whole giant novel. And maybe these are just, a mini series and an anime movie that didn't need a full blown season to tell the story, but it's still stuff that could be important or could enrich the main show's story. So I'm glad they're not ditching season 2 to do these, but they're doing these on top of season 2, which just shows how much they're invested in this. And WB should take note, because man, Netflix is committed to Henry Cavill, and not only are they committed, but they're building an entire universe around him, and they're putting down the money to do it.
And more power to him. I just hope it's not like that supplemental side of things where it's like, oh, we fucked up on these things. Let's make up for it with this other content. Instead of telling just a good solid story, being like, all right, well, we've got to fix this story. Just tell me a good solid independent story and be done with it.
Yeah.
Speaking of fixing shit after the fact, though.
Watch yourself. Watch yourself. That is not the segue. The segue should have been speaking of Henry Cavill. But
speaking of Henry Cavill, no. That's
go ahead.
not.
Say your shitty segue. Go ahead.
So okay. First of all, it's indisputable that Justice League had its faults. And
I agree.
But the news that has been coming out lately, some of it unverifiable, but some of it quoted directly out of Zack Snyder himself. The Snyder Cut, Justice League, which might not even be called Justice League, sounds like there might be a legal issue there. With him being
they've announced the official title of it. But it's not called the Snyder Cut. It's called Zack Snyder's Justice League. That is
Zack Snyder's Justice League. Okay,
that is the official title.
Okay, I didn't see that part, but
yeah,
the news that actually caught my eye. So a lot of stuff came out with con talk and everything. But so we saw Blacksuit Superman. We heard that he will not be using even a single frame of Joss Whedon's footage. They said that if he didn't film it, he ain't using it. Honestly, there's more than I can even remember, but it was just, yeah, we got a lot of information about the Snyder Cut at this point, and unfortunately, it fueled like a lot of like the work that he's doing on it. Kind of fuel and the revealing of those details. A lot of it fueled sort of that part of the fan base that thought that there never was a Snyder Cut, that he didn't have like enough of a finished product, and that he's basically doing it from scratch now, which we've discussed before. I think is totally bullshit. And then more information that was showcasing that this was going to be just like exactly what the fans were hoping for. And everybody like freaking out in a happy way. So I mean, like, depending on which thread you decide to follow, there was a lot of great bad news coming out about Zack Snyder's Justice League.
The coin is flipped, right? We're on the other side of the coin. On the first side of the coin, before the Snyder Cut was officially announced by HBO Max and Warner Brothers and AT&T, before that happened, the toxic people were the fans that were wanting this cut to happen. They were the people that were putting billboards out there, that were doing charity events, and they were called by all these non-believers the toxic fandom. Okay, so that was the one side of the coin. Now the coin is flipped, and you have these people who are excited, who are eating up the news. They can't, they're doing interviews with Zack Snyder. They're listening to everything they can for updates. And the toxic people, the real toxic people, are these critics that won't let it go. They just can't admit that they were wrong. They want to believe that all these fans were stupid. And sure, some of them probably were. Some of them probably believed that there was a 100% done, ready to release in theaters at the snap of a finger, Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. But
was it even ever alluded that was the case, though?
No, it never was. It never was. The assembly cut was always what was talked about. That's always how Zack Snyder approached it. And that's what the majority of the people were fighting for. Let this guy come back. And it wasn't the first time, but these critics don't want to admit it. People fought for the Richard Donner cut, knowing that WB had to invest in that project to make it happen. So they were fighting for that. But a lot of these critics don't want to admit that they were wrong. And so now they just continue to bitch and moan about this no matter what. But Zack Snyder, he is all smiles, man. He's just like, you know what?
Yeah,
they can be the naysayers. We're not even gonna do a panel at I don't know if he did. He might have done a panel at San Diego Comic-Con, but he held his own con. He held Justice Con, which was a 2-day event that happened recently. And and he held an interview there, and it was basically like a webcam interview that everybody could watch. But he did talk a lot, and I apologize. You're right. I did not see that part of it. He did say the name of the movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League, is the name we all want. It's the working name, but there's legal reasons that could restrict it. We're trying to work that out right now. So you're right. I apologize for jumping on you, but he did say some other things. People noticed that in the logo, which you can't see here, but the logo on the newest, I don't know if it was a poster or an apparel, people noticed that there was the Green Lantern logo in there. And he was like, oh, you noticed that? And there was other stuff. There was the dumb question, and the person even said it. I know this is a dumb question, but will your cut use any of the Joss Whedon footage? And we've heard time and time again from the cinematographer to other people in the crew that they filmed a lot more than just finishing touches to make what became Joss Whedon's footage. And he said, absolutely not. He doesn't plan to use a single frame. He said, I would destroy the movie before I use a single frame that I didn't photograph. This is a fucking hard fact. I'd blow the fucking thing up. So this, and that is kind of a dumb question because it's called the Snyder Cut for a reason. It's not the Snyder remix. It's not the Snyder, reboot or retake. It is his cut. It's obviously not going to use the Whedon footage. It's going to use all the footage that he has put in. And he released a couple second snippet of that I'll play right here. Which is kind of fun.
See how you see that kind of charcoal?
Why'd you stop?
Okay. That little.
Blacksuit.
Assuming you're Alfred.
So a very short clip, but basically he also said that he had a trailer that he had cut for his version the year, in the months before he got let go from the project. And
which isn't unusual.
Right. So he has been working on that cut, or he's been working on that trailer and plans to release it in a couple weeks at the DC, on the DC virtual event, which is called Fandom. So, so he's all smiles, which I'm glad he is. He should be, he's getting to finish the project that he worked so hard on. And he even, I don't know if you saw this, but he showed a shirt that a friend of his made that says Justice League. And on the back, it says associate producer. And then it's got a white, like a white strip that they're going to show you how you can stencil in your own name. And basically, he wants every person that has fought for the Snyder Cut to happen to have one of these shirts. And they're going to release 1,000 to the first 1,000 people that show up for the virtual DC Fandom event. And then they're going to have other ways to get it. And then they're going to release like instructions for how you can put your name on there so that when there are live events in the future, you can wear this shirt. And if he's there, he can read it and see your name and know who you are. And that's how he presented it. He was like, I want to know the people that fought for this, and I want them to wear this shirt, and I want to see them at an event so that I can read it and be like, you were one of them. And I think that's pretty damn awesome. I want one of those shirts.
Yeah. I mean, it's just coming from like a true passionate filmmaker. Like he wanted to finish this project. He's doing it for free, reportedly.
Is he? I didn't hear that. That's awesome.
There's some rumors going around that he's doing it for free, which I would kind of buy. Actually, like I would believe that to an extent. Maybe not
like
free,
he hasn't been
but
doing other things. He's working on a movie right now for Netflix. So it's, he's been doing a Army of the Dead movie. So it's not like he hasn't been working. So, he's getting his money. He's getting his money for sure.
And a lot of the stuff that we're seeing was stuff that was teased back when he was the only person working on it too. So it's not like we're coming up with like brand new reveals. Like a lot of it was stuff that we like Blacksuit Superman had been teased already. Like we had seen some like pre-production photography that showed Cavill in a black suit.
We'd seen Cyborg stuff that didn't show up in the movie. We've seen a
there was a lot of Green Lantern rumors that were going around too. Like there was
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like there's a poster that's going around right now that I don't think is official, but it's got Green Lantern just straight up in it.
Yeah.
And I think somebody quoted saying that Snyder saw it and he's like, "Oh, that's actually pretty cool." And and everybody started freaking out and be like, "Oh my god, he didn't deny that Green Lantern's in the movie." Like it was just it's just stupid. But like the internet is a terrible place to go for any verifiable facts about fucking anything.
But he's been good about saying enough while not making too many promises, but also like keeping the fans alive and excited. And he's got the smile on his face. And sure, there are toxic people in every community, but the majority of the Snyder fans have been non-toxic, and they have just been, fighting for this. And he is there to reward them. But he's also, if he wanted to be, he could be in a position to throw shade, and he hasn't done that. I think especially lately with Ray Fisher's comments about Whedon and some of the other things that people have brought up, like for example, you've seen Justice League, right?
Yeah.
So there's that scene where they're running around like it was like a tunnel or something, and the Flash trips and he falls on Wonder Woman, and his head lands on her breasts, and it's very similar to the Joss Whedon movie Age of Ultron, where Bruce Banner falls on Scarlett Johansson's breasts and does the same look up, and I'm sorry, and Flash does that to Wonder Woman in the movie, and then that caused a bunch of controversy when it turns out that Gal Gadot was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not filming that. Don't care. Get a body double." And they got a body double to film that. And then on top of that, Ray Fisher said that there was a lot of.
I just lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Testing.
Back.
Okay. Well, so people were like, "Well, that's not cool. If Gal Gadot didn't want to film that scene, maybe somebody should have stepped in and been like, maybe we just shouldn't have it." But then you had, Ray Fisher saying that that was just one example of a lot of things that he didn't agree with and he thought were unprofessional on set. And, Snyder could be in that camp. He could say a lot of things. He could say, screw that guy. He could say his movie was shit. He could say whatever he wants to say, but he hasn't said that at all. He's being very honest about not showing any of that footage. And he's said up front that he hasn't even seen Joss Whedon's movie, but to my knowledge, he hasn't gone on the offensive towards Whedon at all. He is just focusing on his project and happy to say what he can say so far about it.
Man, and I feel like it would have been just absolute torture in the amount of time after he had to exit the project and just hearing all the news and having people like ask him about like what his feelings are. I'm like, I haven't seen it.
Right.
And
I
have a full movie, but I'm not allowed to talk about it at all. Like I have a bunch of stuff like even when he got because when he got the green light to release it, like he had probably been talking to HBO for a while, and just the amount of whoever like however long he had to wait before he could actually say something to anybody, especially given his devotion to the fans who wanted the film to come out. Like, had to have been just absolute fucking torture.
But he's been a class act, and you know what? I will throw that fact out there every time somebody shits on this guy. I don't care if you don't like his movies. If you don't like his movies, fine. You don't like his movies. No one's forcing you to like it. Absolutely no one is holding a gun to your head or strapping you down Clockwork Orange style to watch this movie or to like this guy. But, I mean, how often do we see a director or an actor or a producer get pissed and go on a rant or, get puffed up with people online and then start, chiming in on the argument? From day one of the controversy to now, he has said nothing that could be construed a certain way or that was blatant or anything against Warner Brothers, against Joss Whedon, against the studio. He hasn't. He has kept a smile on his face. He's been hopeful. He's been thankful. He's been graceful. And, AT&T awarded him with this. And, again, if you're not a fan, you're not a fan. But the people that are fans of him have always loved his director's cut. The director's cut of Watchmen, the director's cut of Sucker Punch, his 300 stuff. They've always loved his work, and they came out in droves for him, and he stayed classy and he stayed hopeful, and now he's getting rewarded for that. And I think that is a positive story that we should be focusing on instead of all the hate.
Yeah. And who loses in this scenario? Nobody does.
Nobody does.
Like you're literally and from the way it sounds, we're getting a completely different story than what Joss Whedon tried telling. So it's like,
right.
Yeah.
And the people saying that the studio loses because they have to pay for this. No,
they're gonna make it all right back. Especially if Snyder's doing it for free.
And beside that, they're not.
Yeah, without him doing it for free, they're making that money back.
Just because you haven't heard of the plans that they have in place, they wouldn't do this if they didn't know they could make money off of it. It might be coming out on HBO Max first, but they'll drop it. They'll drop it on physical media eventually. There'll be shirts. There'll be merchandise. They wouldn't just spend money just to make some people on Twitter happy. They have a plan, and if anything, they're going to come way out on top, and they're going to make that controversy work for them so much. And all of your hate, all of your time trying to fight this tidal wave that's coming is just making the tidal wave bigger. So if you don't want to have anything to do with this movie, just turn it off, man. Just go away, because all you're doing right now is putting more attention to it every time you bitch about it. So I'm excited. I'm so happy to see this guy with a smile on his face, especially considering that, when he left this film, it was because of a very dark time in his family. And now he's being able to come back to it in a very different part with a lot of support. And especially during right now with COVID and everything, it's nice to see some people getting excited about something and supporting this and looking forward to 2021 with this on the horizon. So yeah, it's a cool story to me.
Yeah, and it's great to have some good news, even though we have to wait until late next year.
They haven't said when, but I'm guessing summer at least.
2021 is what later. Is what. Yeah, 2021 was the only thing they committed to, I think.
Right.
No, it's nice to have some good news because 2020 sucks.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump into the lightning round. We got a short episode today. We didn't want to talk about all of the delays, and all of the updates towards delay news already. That
there's so much.
There's just nothing new.
Disney has a calendar all the way out to 2028 now with their Avatar and Star Wars sequels.
Yeah.
And Avatar has been delayed decades already, so it'll come out eventually. That's wow, big news.
Yeah, it's just that's our first story in lightning round. Everything is delayed.
Mm-hmm.
Wear a mask. Wear a mask so it doesn't get worse.
Wear a mask, US, because Tenet is coming out in August. It's just not coming out in the majority of the United States. It's coming out in August. It's gonna come out all over the world in 70 overseas territories. It's launching in August, by the end of August. And they're saying that it's coming out in select cities across the US over Labor Day weekend. And we learned that because Regal Cinemas accidentally leaked it on their website.
Yep.
But right now, it's coming out there. And I will say, somebody that I listen to very regularly made a good point in that I believe he said that the last James Bond movie came out and made something like 70% of its money overseas. 70. And
Yeah.
so I think this is smart. I think Warner Brothers probably shouldn't have been playing that let's bump it another week game as much as they did. And now they're just like, look, America, you got to stop being assholes, but we're not going to punish the rest of the world. So they are releasing it in August in 70 markets outside of the United States. And if the US can get their shit together by Labor Day, then they'll release it Labor Day. But here's hoping that that it's not crazy leaked. Will be. And I'm telling you, man, even if you're like, man, I don't torrent a lot or I don't go download things a lot, but I'll probably do it for this one. I know they're not Disney, but I guarantee you Warner Brothers is going to be paying some people to be tracking those things. So don't risk it. Just don't. And you don't want to watch a Christopher Nolan film on your phone and with some shitty quality. So just wear your mask, do your part, and soon it'll come to your city. It's kind of like the reward for doing the responsible thing.
It's the only way to go about it. Like it's the only way to go about it. Be safe, err on the side of caution at the very least.
Yeah.
And things will start opening back up. But yeah, we didn't want to talk about a bunch of the other delays that are going out there because honestly, it's not news at this point. Like it's almost coming to be expected.
Yeah.
But we had a couple birthdays. Bugs Bunny turned 80. Celebrated 80 years. He's actually he turns 80 today. And I grew up watching Bugs Bunny. Like the classic shows. My parents, so there was a Thanksgiving marathon on back in early 90s, very early 90s. So it was a Thanksgiving Day special, and this is back when you could just throw a tape into the VCR and record whatever was on TV.
Yeah.
And so my parents recorded like that entire marathon. All the commercials are intact, all of that. And I watched that tape so many times. So many times. They continued on with it with like more episodes and stuff like that. There were some repeats because they recorded like 3 parts of like 3 different marathons at some point. And so yeah, I grew up watching Bugs Bunny, and man, if people if the cancel culture crowd got a hold of the episodes of that show back in that, like if they got a hold of that VHS tape, Jesus fucking Christ. Because there's some stuff that they got away with on Looney Tunes that I couldn't understand they got away with at the time, but still, like
there was some stuff they got away with, and then there was some stuff that they just they pushed into the medium before other people could have a chance to realize what they were doing. Like, sure, they did things like blackface and stuff like that. They did some, way back in the day, in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, they had what we would call severely racist cartoons. Which if you look at Disney's catalog, everybody that did cartoons back then did. But then in the later years, they had things like, especially with him cross-dressing and stuff like that. I think some people would laugh it off and be like, "Oh, that's so funny," and other people would be like, "Huh, that they're doing things in this show that other shows aren't doing, or at least it's not on the main TV on anywhere else." And I wouldn't say it was something they got away with. I would say that it was something that they were introducing as kind of normal culture, even if you weren't reading it that way. And I always thought that was interesting. Like, I recognized that pretty young in my life. Like, Bugs Bunny is getting away with a lot of stuff, or at least he's introducing a lot of stuff that you don't see in other mediums. And I think people would just kind of let it happen because it was a cartoon. But then, later on, you're like, wow, that was kind of cool that they did some of those things. Not all of them, some of them.
Well, it's it was a series that I've grown up with, and it's more than triple my age. So
have you seen any of the new stuff?
No, I haven't watched. I haven't bothered. From what I'm told, it's not worth watching.
It's something that I could see like when I have literally nothing else to watch, putting it up. But I have so much other stuff to watch that it's way back there.
that's the other thing. Like it'd be really hard to kind of keep track of all that. We had another birthday for probably my favorite piece of DC media. Well, maybe it's up there. It's really up there. Batman and the Red Hood turns 10 today.
What?
So if
Batman and the Red Hood?
Batman Under the Red Hood,
Oh, the movie.
the animated movie,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that
that
movie.
turns 10 years old today.
I love 10 years old today. Man, I wish I would have known that. We should have done like a watch along thing because that is like hands down one of my favorite. I think maybe I would put Mask of the Phantasm above that just because of how iconic that movie is. But Under the Red Hood is definitely one of my favorite adaptation or adaptation of a comic. And it's done so well. I
did
love that
such a
movie
good
so
job.
much. So
So
much.
interesting fact, as far as like the animated movies go,
Mhm.
like the animated films, Under the Red Hood was actually the first one that I saw. I
you
didn't see
serious?
I didn't see Mask of the Phantasm until after that.
Wow.
And I saw it around the time that it came out. It was like it was it was around like 2012 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Well, that's a hell of a movie to be introduced to the animated films with because it was crazy good.
Well, because
Crazy good.
I watched the animated series when I was a kid,
Sure.
when I was still in school. But like I'd kind of fallen out of that. Like when I got out of the house, I didn't have TV for a while. I didn't have access to like watch much of anything else. But I didn't get into Mask of the Phantasm at that point in time. But yeah, it wasn't until I watched Under the Red Hood that I started really paying attention. Like that was when I really fell in love with Batman. That was when I really started to like the character and the series, like to see like a more I mean the animated series was already pretty dark and gritty, but yeah, just the story of Jason Todd and the way that they play it out is just brutal and incredible.
This is one of my favorite custom books that I have here. I called it Hard Times, and it includes the death in the family story arc
Yeah.
from the 80s with the voting issue of should Jason Todd die or not. It also includes the lonely place of dying, which is how Bruce handled it afterwards, and then how Tim Drake came into the picture, and then it includes the Red Hood Lost Days and the Under the Red Hood storyline. It was I remember when the initial story came out when Jason Todd was killed off. I remember when Hush came out when I was in high school and Jason Todd was teased, but then it was just Hush playing a mind game. But then everybody was like, oh, we really want Jason Todd back. So Under the Red Hood came out, and it was just, I mean, the comic was great. The storyline was great. The movie was great. And the acting was great. What's his name? Jason Jensen Ackles from Supernatural voices Jason Todd. I think you had what's his name from How I Met Your Mother played Nightwing. Doogie Howser.
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, played Nightwing. It was just great. It's a great movie, man. I get chills every time I watch that movie. And
yeah, you had and let's see. So you had Jensen Ackles as Jason Todd / Red Hood. Bruce Greenwood as Batman, which Bruce Greenwood, I can't really think. I mean, I can't really think of like a famous piece of work that he's done recently. He's in a lot of stuff. He's in a lot of stuff in the side. Like he plays Kirk's dad in Star Trek, the latest iteration. So that might ring a bell. He was also in The Core, which was a movie that we were shitting on not too many episodes ago. Neil Patrick Harris as Dick Grayson, John DiMaggio as Joker, and John DiMaggio has a lot of voice acting credits, specifically Bender, from Futurama.
He had a great raspy Joker voice. I liked it. I liked it. He was good.
I don't like his Joker as much as I like Mark Hamill's, but Mark Hamill's is kind of hard to beat. Like he plays it super well.
Well, it's not as iconic for sure, but the voice actors were good. They didn't take me out of the movie like some of the more modern animated films have.
Oh shit! He also did Marcus Phoenix from the Gears of War series. That's great.
Nice.
It's like
nice.
that's another good voice acting role that he had.
Well, that's cool, man. I didn't know that movie turned 10.
Yeah, that turned 10.
Great. Awesome.
And then for the last part of the lightning rounds, I didn't know if you wanted to do it, but Bill and Ted 3 had a trailer drop. I didn't know if you wanted to do a quick reaction to that together, or if you wanted to make that part of the episode, or if you wanted to have that be something separate. But it's not huge. But
it's not like a long trailer, you mean?
Or
what do you mean by it's not
I think
huge?
it was just a teaser.
Well, they've already released some teasers, so I would think they'd
oh,
have
for sure.
longer
Yeah, it's the
trailer.
official. Okay, so yeah, it's
I
official
wouldn't
trailer
mind
2.
doing a separate reaction to that after the show.
Okay. Well, yeah, then that will wrap up this episode of the N.A.P. Nerf Herders. Thank you for stopping by. We appreciate you coming in. Be sure to hit us up in the comments down below to respond to anything that we talked about, or something you might want us to talk about again here in the future. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe so you don't miss any future content, and we will see you guys later.
See ya.
Out of here.